As I said, we're doing things a little bit different this morning. Generate, there's some stuff coming for you in a little bit. And I heard that there's sweets as well, so I'm looking forward to them. But there'll be some stuff. Matt will come up in a bit. Jean and I just this morning wanted to give a little bit of feedback. We've been away this week at a conference in Cyprus and called Newfrontiers Global, and sometimes there's a gathering of the kind of leaders from across the world, and so it's a real privilege to be there this week. We've gone from sort of 25, 30 degree heat to 4 degrees or whatever, but don't feel sorry for us because it was lovely being there. So we wanted to just give a little bit of feedback for that, but I'm aware that if you're a guest here this morning or watching online, or if you're new to church or new to Kings, this could feel like a little bit in-house, as it were, because we're going to be talking about things that we're involved in as a family of churches across the globe. But I do hope that it's still relevant to you and helpful to you as well if you're new to Christianity and so on. But we're not kind of doing like the usual preach in our series, as it were, this morning. But I thought it might be good to just explain a little bit about what is Newfrontiers, and then there's Relational Mission. So I've put together a very poor PowerPoint, really, but it's not like a massively long thing. Don't worry, it's not death by PowerPoint. But hopefully it will explain to you a little bit about kind of this growing church movement that we are part of. And some of us have been part of that for many, many years now. If you go back to the first slide, there should be one before that with a tiny little Newfrontiers in the middle. There we go. Newfrontiers. A family of churches that we've been part of for sort of many years. A chap called Terry Virgo and others have been serving churches, expanding out of Seaford, I think, on the south coast. One church that's then now expanded across the globe. And about 10, 12 years ago, this kind of multiplied. And what happened was, the best way to describe it, I find anyway, is that multiplication, the church is family. And so I like to use family language to describe the multiplication of the church. And so Terry was a bit of a father to a number of churches across the globe that people look to for input and for direction and his message of grace and so on, and all sorts of other things, him and his team, and it grew and expanded. But, as it were, fathers have sons who grow up to be fathers. And what you don't do with fathers is keep them at home. Sons who are growing up, you don't keep them at home. Just looking at Andy for some reason. Jono is sort of making his own way in the world now. And so you release them from the home. And that's exactly what Newfrontiers did. Rather than try and kind of replace Terry as a kind of organizational thing, that's not what the Bible teaches. It talks about movement and multiplication. And so rather than kind of someone to replace sort of Terry and leading this family of churches, it multiplied into numbers of different churches. So that's the next slide. Boom. Look at that. And this is just some of them. I think we've got, Commission, Christ Central, Relational Mission, Regions Beyond. The big C there is Catalyst, New Ground, Confluence. And that's where Tom and Josie, you were part of Confluence, weren't you, in America? The Kerith churches in Kenya. There's also loads of others as well. This is not it by any stretch of the imagination. But Newfrontiers has gone from kind of one family of churches to multiple families of churches across the globe. And it's just a joy to be part of that and to see this kind of multiplication. And we're Relational Mission, that one there. We're part of Relational Mission there. And so this conference was a gathering of leaders from all of these different, what we call spheres, different kind of families of churches coming together in Cyprus, because it's one of the central places where globally for people to get to. And so it's a real joy for us to be there that week. There's another slide with some pictures up, because there was 3 things that we felt just to share. One was the joy of global relationships that we've kind of re-experienced this week, the need for planting churches, and the reality of suffering. And we're just going to share around that a little bit. So Jean's going to talk about the joy of global relationships first.
Yeah, I think not only the joy of global relationships, it was just such a privilege, really, to be there amongst so many different nationalities and countries. I felt very honoured and blessed, and just mixing with them, it was fun, really, because I ended up with a croaky voice, and at times I'd lost my voice during the conference. When I was chatting to people whilst I could in between, I was chatting with an Indian lady, and they said, "Oh, you must go and have some cinnamon tea." And then I would chat to someone from Ukraine who said, "Oh, you know what you need? You need some honey." And then I'd chat to someone else from the States, and they'd say, "Oh, no, you need to be drinking ginger and lemon." So I was just enjoying everyone's different advice across the countries. But one of the exciting things was Dave Holden got up at one point and asked people to come and pray, and to pray in their own languages. And he started off with a very small queue, and people were saying prayers, and everyone would shout a massive amen. And it was really, really beautiful. And then at one stage, Dave Holden said, "Oh, we've only got time for 4 more." And everyone went, "Boo!" So we had to go on for ages, and people coming up. It was just such a beautiful, beautiful thing to experience, hearing everyone in their own mother tongue praising and worshipping God. Even on our journey there, we shared a taxi ride with a lady called Donna. And for some of you, you may have heard years back about a lady called Chrissy Chapman who went out to Burundi and started to work out there and plant and serve churches and young children. And this lady, Donna, had given up a lot of her time to go out there and serve, work with children. And most of what she was doing was helping with farming. And in Burundi, I think the government was seeing that the work that they were doing there was having a lot more fruit. And so people were coming from all over to see exactly what Donna was doing and how she was teaching them out there, because they were seeing, tons more growth in their fields than other people were. But she was telling us on the journey that she has seen about 180 people saved, which just is beautiful to hear. We also chatted with some guys from the east coast of Canada, and they're planting churches there too, which was exciting to hear their stories. But I think some of the relationships are ones that we already have here with people, which I was really encouraged about, how Kings, how us in Norwich are running on the ground together with our brothers and sisters from other countries. And one of those would be Emmanuel and his wife, who Brian and Elsbeth run very heavily on the ground with. It was great to see them. There was another guy called George from Bulgaria. He was there with his wife, and I don't think many of you will remember, but he came to us about 10 years ago. And when we were chatting with him, he said, "I remember your church. It really impacted my life." And he wanted to chat to us more. And then he talked about Mile Cross. And he was just saying, "I loved being in Mile Cross." And I think it was just that heart of feeling that sense of he came here and he was blessed by you guys, and he was talking about, "I really need to come back again and learn from you guys." So I'm sure we might be seeing George at some point. And then again, I don't know if the photos are up there yet. We got to see Edward and Frida and up the top there, and Joel and Sharon, and yeah. They were back here in July. I don't know if you remember them, but it was just really good to pray together, encourage each other, and praise Jesus.
The photo at the top, that's just a few of us around the table. You can't really see it very clearly, I realise, but the chap sort of 3 down is Bob Roberts. I'll say something about him in a minute. You've got Tom from Ipswich there. You've got Steph there, Hasia, who's in Kurdistan. You've got some other people down the other end of the table. That's a few of the people from Relational Mission. There's about 15 of us in total from Relational Mission churches who were there in Cyprus. One of the things that really came through strongly was the whole thing of church planting. You know, we are part of a global movement that has church planting at the heart of it. That we want to, and we never want to lose that. We want to be starting churches across the world. And a chap called Chris Taylor, I always forget, The Hague, that's where he's based. Chris Taylor, he's in The Hague. In fact, John Mullender, you here, John? We went over there a while back. I don't know, John's around somewhere. We went over there to his church about maybe 8 years ago or something like that. But he shared some stuff around some research they've done on church planting across Newfrontiers. And we've planted around, over the past 10 years, about 500 plus churches have been planted across the world. I think we're in like 90 nations now as a movement, as a movement across the world. And what was encouraging about that was that the rate of growth of church planting is growing in the sort of what would be known, I don't really like the term developing world, maybe what we would consider kind of the sort of global south. Church planting is accelerating. But when it comes to kind of the West, it seems that church planting is slowing down a little bit, and that's some food for thought for us. And also what came through there was the importance of us being a movement. You know, Newfrontiers suggests that we're about going to new frontiers, new places. And around 40%, there's still about 40% of people in the world, unreached people groups in the world. And they're mainly in, I think, Asia, in Africa, and in the Middle East. And all those three places, in fact, 95% of the 40%, if that makes sense, are in those three continents, Asia, in Africa, and in the Middle East as well. And so as RM, Relational Mission, we're involved in all of those places. We've got church plants in those places, churches in those places as well. And two of those, to bring it right down to the kind of personal, two of those 500 churches that have been planted in the past 10 years were our friends. If we bring that up again, can we bring this big screen up? Down here, this photo here, caught them in the reception area. This is Abby and John. Does anyone remember Abby? Abby Flavel, she's now, yeah, anyone else remember Abby? Not many, no, but they were around the number of, or Abby was around here. She came as a student to King's many years ago now, and it was such a joy to see them. They moved up to Hull, and since then they're planting their second church now as well. So I just want to encourage you really, you never know what God might do with you, but we want to keep church planting on the agenda. It's very much about what we're doing. We want to be open to God speaking about that, maybe sending different ones out to different places in the coming years. The other thing to say on that as well is that along with planting churches and these deep relationships is the reality of suffering. That came through very strongly. When you're in a room filled with people from nations where persecution is a reality, it's a daily reality when you're waking up in the morning. I mean, we were in Cyprus, which is, I was just reflecting on this one morning, just across the water from Israel and Palestine. It's not that far from there. And one morning I was just sort of thinking, man, there are people just across that ocean there who are just facing horror, and it's awful. And there are, Christians in that setting. And Bob Roberts, who was with us and who'll be at the Call conference, leadership conference coming up soon. I'll say something about that in a bit as well. He works quite closely in conflict situations with Christians, with Muslims, to bring peace among people as well. So he was kind of up all night on the phone doing all sorts of things while he was there as well. But the reality of suffering, and Jean mentioned this guy George, and we're having dinner one night, and I was sitting across the table from him just sort of talking, and just hearing his stories, really, growing up in a communist nation before the fall of communism in 1989. And I asked him, what was it like to lead a church before communism had fell in your nation? And he shared all sorts of stories, and the reason why he became a church leader was because the pastor in the church that he was part of was arrested and killed. And then he told the story, I think it might have been even the prison that he was killed in. Now they have a church in that prison of, I think, around 180 people or something like that. They were asked to come and start a church in the prison where this guy was killed. Just incredible. And he was just telling the difference and the challenges they faced from leading through that. And so it's a reality for many. And Jean, you'll share a bit more about this as well.
Yeah, each morning we had an elder of a church stand up and share what was going on in their part of the world. And we prayed for them. And one morning it was a guy from India. And he again was talking about stories of his church leaders being arrested and persecuted and imprisoned. We had exactly the same from a guy in China. I'm not going to say anymore, all that same kind of flavor, really. But persecution just seemed to be rife. And as he was talking, he was saying amidst all of that persecution, though, in China, they'd seen 58 house churches being planted. There was another guy from Ukraine who basically shared his story about when everything kicked off in Ukraine, how he lost absolutely everything, him and his family, home, house, business, all the things that he'd saved up for, invested in for his future, everything was gone. And they were 18 churches at the time, and churches were just breaking out all over as they were being scattered. It just really seemed to be a picture of Acts. I think he said they went from 18 churches to 55 as all different leaders were scattered around. And then just of recent, when things really kicked off, he ended up leaving with his family and coming to Bedford, and all he could take with him was his car. And he's now placed in Bedford, and he is I think he's on their 10th church that he's been involved in planting across Europe. And I think for me, listening to all of those stories was really, really sobering, because at the end of those times together of discussion, I've been at these things before, and we're always praying, as we rightly should do, for these guys and what they're going through and what they're living with each day. But I felt very sobered by the fact that they decided that this time it was time to pray for us. They were more concerned for us, that in our Western world, our churches aren't growing. And I think just listening to them, it was just that sobering feeling of knowing I was coming back here, but what are they coming back to? And the subtleness of the culture we live in, and how perhaps we need to be rethinking, what does that mean for me? What does that mean for me, and how I share the gospel and how I stand up for things here in my nation and in my city, really. So that's a challenge.
I know, with so much going on in our lives sometimes, isn't there? Individually, I imagine for yourself, you've got a lot going on, and there's things that we're kind of involved in, whether it's family and work and at the home and all the rest of it. But it's important sometimes just to have our kind of vision lifted again to kind of what we are part of as the church. It's not just about our local church in our city where we are, but it's about being part of something so much bigger and so much greater. And we have that very meaningful connection. We've got Vlada from Serbia. He's coming to preach in a couple of weeks' time. So that's on the 22nd, I think, of September. September? It's October. Yes. News. It's October. 22nd of October. Vlada from Serbia will be with us. And so just want to encourage you, really. And if you want to kind of get a grasp of a bit more about relational mission and what's going on, there's a few things that are coming up. One is the Call Conference. I don't know if we managed to get the website or not. If we haven't, no problem at all. Go on the relationalmission.org website, and there's a leadership conference. Well, I say leadership, it's kind of open to, if you lead a dog, you're welcome. Come along to it. Come along to it. It's in Ipswich on half-term week, from the Wednesday evening through to the Saturday morning, and day tickets are now available. So maybe on the Thursday or Friday, if you're able to get down there. I said, Bob Roberts, this guy, he's a character. What a gift he is as well, and well worth hearing, well worth hearing. So really encourage as many of us as possible. If you're not booked in for the week, get along for the day if you're able to. I think there's a Saturday morning as well, if you can get along to that. But that's the Call Conference coming up. And also another thing, which is a heads up for dates, is when in August 2024, so that's the summer next year, just have that in mind, it's going to be hot again. The 23rd to 26th of August, 2024, we're having a festival called More Together. Those who remember maybe Stoneleigh and other Bible weeks like that we've done in the past and things we've done together, these are really great weeks. Not just for great teaching and worship and being together and the bigger vision, but actually just the relationships, building relationships across the churches. They're really, really key times. So I'd really encourage you. Are these going to be given out on the way out? I'm looking for someone to make a nod. Table on the way back. So don't just walk past the table, but grab these on the way out, put the date in your diary, and then get booked in when more info comes out.